Dr. Mukund Dikshit, Dr. Chechdi, Dr. Subhash, Dr. Shivappa, Madam Tigadi, and Professor Tigadi's family members, invitees, guests, and students. Norms, standard, discipline so appropriately describes some of the attributes one can relate to Professor Tigadi. Thank you, Professor Dikshit, for an enlightening lecture on the subject. Kousali Institute of Management Studies is an institute established by Karnatak University under the leadership of Professor Tigadi to spread knowledge and prepare management professionals, and he devoted a large part of his life in this meaningful endeavor with great enthusiasm and unbounded energy. Professor Tigadi's name and his achievement, therefore, shall be eternal, even as the institute he built is for eternity. We, as admirers and students of Professor, should therefore continue to support and nurture the institute to achieve even greater heights and to truly become an institute of excellence. I still remember my first one-to-one meeting with Professor Tigadi. I joined the course in 1978 and went to his cabin to introduce myself. In my enthusiasm, I happened to mention that I did very well in my BSc and he had even got 99 out of 100 in mathematics. I thought he will appreciate, but rather he asked me, "How did you lose that one mark?" And I had no answer. Like this, many meetings on and off the classroom and many key lessons to my management career. I shall only touch upon few lessons that relate to the topic of today's lecture. So one of the key lessons I learned quite early through him is to be always in pursuit of higher benchmarks and excellence with untiring energy. The second lesson I learned from him is that if you are on a path of righteousness, you have none to fear and you imbibe a sense of self-confidence, pride and self-esteem. This lesson came in very handy to me in the early part of my career in WIMCO, where I had to single-handedly fight an unholy alliance of my junior staff members and a prominent distributor for products and also their employees, who managed to stop our business for a while and also threatened me physically. It was a long-drawn battle, and eventually I succeeded in my efforts to restore our business and justice prevailed. As we say in our Upanishads, Satyameva Jayate, or truth alone triumphs, a principle we were taught by our revered professor. Thirdly, I was also greatly influenced by Professor on matters of discipline as foremost, even when compared to performance of an individual. This helped me in my capacity as General Manager in Tata's and also when I headed organizations in India and Dubai, to enforce discipline in the organization as fundamental. Results are not easy to get in some highly competitive industries. However, what should a head of an organization do while dealing with strong performers, some of whom I experienced were also highly indisciplined? Should we tolerate extreme cases of indiscipline because those are cases of strong performers? What would be the message we send across to an organization if we don't act on indiscipline? These are key questions, and I have in my capacity in several organizations considered discipline as primary and foremost, and performance came only next. I am not narrating some cases so as to curtail the speech considering a highly literate and experienced audience. Another issue I faced was to get employees to report on time to the offices, as a large number of employees arrived late invariably. I tackled this issue by demonstrating personal discipline and reaching the office half an hour early, which eventually helped to streamline this complex but a common issue in offices. So in this case, leading by example worked. Another principle I learned through Professor. Management theory and practice has undergone qualitative changes in the last few decades. With globalization, there are new challenges of different dimensions, making the role of managers more complex. Compared to the era of active trade unionism prior to liberalization, Managing people in today's passive trade unionism is even more tough. This is not just due to increased opportunities, but also complexities of human behavior in modern world accentuated by internal and external stress factors. One effective way to balance task and people is through team building. To achieve corporate goals, balancing people and task orientation is also to recognize that people are generally self-motivated and capable of achieving excellence under effective leadership. We all would remember theory Y in this context that we learnt in the institute. The outcome of team building is a successful pursuit of common goals and vision. Balancing people and task is therefore a necessity in today's business environment, as corporate leadership is more about becoming successful and not becoming popular. In the institute, I never got to know Professor Tigadi at a personal level. The distance between a professor director and a student was always maintained out of respect to his status and also his personality. In fact, I came to know him much later in life. Many years back, KIMS had a felicitation for professor in Bangalore. After the completion of the event at Bangalore, he also had another felicitation in Hyderabad, and he was to return to Bangalore after 2 days in the morning by a flight and take the night train to Dharwad. So I had this rare opportunity to receive him at the airport and host him at my place for the day. During this day, he not only became very close to me, but also grew fond of my wife Anita. To summarize the day, I remember a Japanese quote: "Better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher." We used to call him on phone occasionally to inquire about his well-being and a customary visit to his home every time we were in Dharwad. I remember on one of my visits to his home, he affectionately chided me for not bringing along Anita. That visit, I remember, he showed me around his home and said, "You must come here, stay here when you come next with Anita." Later in 2015 or so, I had visited Hubli to be part of Viva exams at Chetan Business School. On day one, it was fixed that we meet Professor at Taj Gateway in the evening for a high tea. Knowing that he will arrive exactly on time, we all waited to receive him at the portico of the hotel. The moment he got down from the car, he gave me a bag full of avocado fruits and said, "I have brought these fruits specially for you, and there's a story about this and I will tell you later." As we walked to the restaurant, he said, "Many years back, your father had come and met me, and he had come with another MLA friend of him from Coorg. And this sapling of avocado was given to me by your father. I planted it in my garden, and since we were meeting, I plucked these fruits specially for you." He was by then 91 years. I was really overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness and his energy at that advanced age to make this very special for me. And the story behind these fruits, I had no clue that my father had actually met him, which I presume was much after I left the institute. My father passed away in 1981, and he was an MLC and all the Senate of Karnatak University, and probably that could have been the background of my father's visit to Dharwad and a chance meeting with Professor. Knowing Professor, after narrating the story, he didn't stop there. He insisted on knowing if I knew how to cut the fruit, as avocado as a fruit was not a very familiar fruit. It is said that a man's memories are a private library. Anecdotes are many, lessons are plenty, as I met him regularly after returning to India in 2010. On one particular visit, as I was preparing to leave, he gave me 2 African wooden figurines, saying, "I have no use for these now, and I can only imagine them in your house." Probably I shall write more about him to be part of the book that may be published in due course. A teacher takes a hand, opens the mind, and touches the heart. That's what Professor did to me and many of his numerous students. I thank Dr. Tigadi and the Institute for this opportunity to speak on this occasion. Thank you all for your time.